Stephania here. We need the updated latest on injuries around the NFL. And we start all the way out in Los Angeles. Stephania, the Chargers have no receivers besides Keenan Allen. Are they going to have Keenan Allen this week, though?
And also a guy who plays through injury on the regular. We already saw that he had an AC sprain that he has played through. Now he's dealing with a quad injury. And, after last year's hamstring issue, which cost him multiple weeks, you would not expect him to do anything that could potentially set him back. But here's the good news. Even though he hasn't been practicing, been working out on the side, in shorts, running, sounds like they're feeling pretty positive about his availability. We're recording this Friday morning, so Friday practice will be a big deal, but it sounds very positive for Keenan Allen.
They travel across the country to New England. Of course, they would have to rule him out if he does not get on the plane. We'll have clarity by Sunday morning, I would think, but Keenan Allen definitely a gamer. If he's unavailable, good luck. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe Jalen Guyton, if you're feeling super frisky, we'll address that on Fantasy Football Now on Sunday. Tank Dell, Stephania, popped up on the injury report on Wednesday. What's going on with him and that calf?
Dealing with a calf strain. Now, they did put him through imaging. It sounds like they think it's minor. D'Amico Ryan sounded optimistic, hopeful that they would have him available this week. He's had 5 touchdowns in the last 4 games, kind of important. And remember, they've been without Noah Brown for 2 games because he too's been dealing with an injury. And it sounds like they're maybe a little bit hopeful that they could get Noah Brown as well. Do you realize that they only have had all 4 of their receivers, if we include Robert Woods in the mix, in week 1?
Week 1, that's it, huh?
Week 1.
And at that point, that group of 4 receivers was not what we think it can be right now. So it has been a lot of success, despite a lot of absences over the past month and a half for C.J. Stroud. Good news there on Tank Dell. Sounds like Dalton Schultz is going to be very iffy for this one on Sunday.
Yeah, he's the one I think is most questionable.
I've said this several times. I'll say it again on this podcast. D'Amico Ryans is if you don't practice, you don't typically play kind of guy. He's the anti-Pete Carroll. So if a guy misses all 3 practices during the week, you can all but rule him out. If he misses 2 out of 3, still makes me a little bit nervous. Let's go to New Orleans, Stephania, where they are very thin. They're like the Chargers. They're the Spider-Man meme right now. Who is available amongst their wide receivers? Because both Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed have been on the injury report this week. What do we know?
We know that Chris Olave is in the concussion protocol, but the good news for him is that he was participating even in individual drills on Wednesday. So early signs of him being out on the field, limited practice Wednesday and Thursday, obviously would need to move through the 5 phases of the concussion protocol and also get the INC clearance if he were to be eligible to return. So we'll be following that potentially up through Saturday. And then Rashid Shaheed has a quad injury left in the second quarter. Does not sound good for him. Have not seen hide nor hair from him at practice this week. Who's going to catch passes? It might not be a wide receiver. I mean, there's A.T. Perry, who's had a couple big plays, but it could be Juwan Johnson.
Juwan Johnson. We'll talk about him more later on in the show.
And Michael Thomas out on IR. So, as you mentioned, but their 2 tight ends, Taysom Hill and Juwan Johnson, might be more interesting.
Marquez Callaway also added to the practice squad recently. A blast from the past. We could have Marquez Callaway and Jimmy Graham making strides for the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. We go to Arizona, Stephania, where yesterday we got news that Zach Ertz was granted his release after he requested it. And that was not the only tight end news out there in the desert, as Trey McBride also dealing with an injury. What's going on with he and Hollywood Brown?
Yeah, Trey McBride has a groin injury, and this one is a little bit concerning. Didn't practice Wednesday, limited on Thursday. Obviously, he's been a big factor in the passing game, which is why they felt so comfortable moving on from Zach Ertz. But keep in mind, the Cardinals are one of the remaining 2 teams that has not had their bye yet, and they have it in Week 14. So I wouldn't be surprised with a soft tissue injury to somebody who's important to them that they may end up holding him out this week. Hollywood Brown played through the heel injury that he was dealing with last week and had the most targets he's had all year, like finally looking like he and his buddy Kyler Murray are getting back in sync. So I'm not as worried about him, even though he didn't practice, listed as a DNP. I think he'll end up playing.
You pay attention to this stuff a lot more than I do. I know that reporters did not see Trey McBride, but he ended up registering a limited participation practice. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Reportedly did something in drills. I think, when people don't see them, it's hard to judge like how engaged were they, because as we've talked about, limited can be like 2 or 3 things that you do, or limited can be 75% of the practice.
Right. Yeah, there's quite a wide range there for a limited practice in the NFL. Monday Night Football makes things complicated, Stephania, especially when you're a star like Travis Etienne. What's going on with him?
It was originally called a chest injury. Then it was later changed to a rib injury. And he's been called day to day, but he did play through this. So that's one good sign was he was able to play through it. The fact that they get an extra day on Monday, we really only have that Thursday report because, as you mentioned, it's a Monday night game. Limited, but it sounds like the team feels pretty good about his status for Monday night.
Also limited. Is that correct? So you said? Okay.
Yes.
Another one where, again, I'm not trying to begrudge the reporters, but this was one where he was not spotted.
You're right.
By the reporters at practice. So when that's the case, it leaves some open for interpretation of just how limited the player was or was not.
But I
that's
think
good
what
context.
you can take away is the fact that he continued and played through it doesn't mean they're concerned. Some rib injuries, they're very concerned about the potential for further injury. Does not sound like that's a worry here. So it's a pain tolerance issue. Makes you feel much better about his chances.
In the interest of time, we'll table it for now because it sounds like Etienne has a real shot of playing. But if that turns for the worse and we have to discuss the Jaguars on fantasy football now, do not forget the name Dearness Johnson, who could give it a go for Jacksonville on Monday night. Aaron Jones, Stephania, the Packers are very banged up in that running back room.
Yeah,
but he's the one that matters the most for fantasy purposes. How healthy or unhealthy is he right now?
I just don't think we're going to see Aaron Jones this week. This is the MCL sprain on his left knee, and it's the whole picture, right? Because he had this hamstring injury that cost him multiple weeks. When he injured his knee, we saw him leave on a cart. He looked devastated. He thought he'd torn his ACL. The fact that it was a more mild injury is terrific news for him, but it doesn't mean you're going to get him back quickly. And we looked back at earlier in the pod, earlier in the week, at the fact that he dealt with MCL injuries before, and he's come back fairly quickly. Well, those have been to his right knee. And also wasn't in the same knee following, so this one's his left, following a hamstring injury that cost him multiple games. So I think they're going to be careful with him. It just doesn't feel like he's headed back this week.
Yeah, a notoriously conservative team on the medical front as well, which is a good thing, by the way, for the players' well-being. And A.J. Dillon, he sounds like he's going to be good to go. He's been playing through it.
Yeah, he's playing through it. Like, he's not 100%. Yeah. And that's not helping the production. But volume-wise, I think he'll be the guy.
And as we know with A.J. Dillon, you have to temper expectations because he's had a lot of opportunities to fill in as the guy for Aaron Jones. It has not really mounted to much at all for fantasy purposes. Back-to-back games filling in for Jones, under 12 fantasy points for A.J. Dillon. So have you thought at all in the past 9 minutes about what you want to wager with Mike for the game? Do you have anything that you would really desire from Mike?
So the last time Mike and I watched a game together and had a wager going.
Oh, I remember this one.
My quarterback left with a UCL tear.
Yeah, his elbow exploded.
And then became the entire offseason of wondering if Brock Purdy would be back. So I don't know if I trust Mike Clay.
Okay, I don't know.
I'm just
Mike has a pretty nice car. I would consider wagering maybe not just trading cars, but a month of a trade of a car. That seems reasonable.
I like the food wagers.
Okay, food wagers. Okay, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
But Mike likes yogurt with granola in it, so
I know. So that's an easy. I mean, I could.
You might win that, yeah. Hey, Mike, I'll buy you 6 Chobanis and a bag of Bears Valley granola, and you get me, a Chardonnay.
But I'll take a case of nice wine.
There you go. Okay, a case of nice wine.
You have to go to my hometown and get the wine.
Great stuff, as always, from Stephania Bell.